Larry Johnson, it's good to have you.
Thanks, Troy. Good to see you.
Yeah. Um, you have been working with FC Fire? For
Fire FC.
Fire FC. I should know that because I've been involved in the club for
You
quite a,
have.
quite a while. Um, how many years?
I came, my family and I came to Grand Junction in 1999,
Okay.
and I started coaching here when I got here. So, was that 23 years that
23
I've
years.
been here in Grand Junction
Oh, wow.
as either a coach or involved
For
as a general
FC?
manager. Yes.
For Fire, I mean?
Which used to be Grand Mesa Youth Soccer Association.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Yep.
prior to 2007 is when we had a changeover to Grand Junction Soccer Club, Fire FC.
Okay. Was that back in the blue and yellow shirt days?
It was the single
Yeah.
T-shirts. In fact, as I came in as a general manager, that was the first task that was given to me, was to please get us a reversible jersey,
Oh, okay.
so we don't have to have those two jerseys
Uh-huh.
and bring the wrong jersey for home or
Yep.
away. So that was the first task I was given.
That I remember those days, man.
Yes.
I've been playing soccer since since I can remember here in Grand Junction. And yep, the blue T-shirts, and they weren't even jerseys really. They
No,
were just
It's just a T-shirt with a logo on it.
yep, exactly. And then you had the yellow shirt as well.
Exactly.
So, and we always wanted to be blue. We never liked to be yellow.
Right. Yeah, that yellow or gold color.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
Team pictures would be kind of mixed between the blue and gold because parents would, forget one of the T-shirts, and it was just kind of a mismatched
Oh
group.
man, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, the Give us a little bit of background on just your soccer life. Like when did you start playing soccer? When did you take it serious? And then kind of your career, I guess, of it.
Okay. I wasn't a soccer player at age 4, like you get a lot of kids today, are 3 and 4 years old when they start. I didn't start playing soccer until I was 16 years old.
Okay.
I was actually riding my bike up in Portland, Oregon, by a park, and I had some friends that were out playing soccer, and they called me over and, hey, we need a player. And I said, okay, well, I have never done this before. So
Uh-huh.
I went and I watched them for a little bit, and I said, well, I'm not in the mood to be running around like you guys are doing. Is there anything else I could do? I said, well, you can go into goal.
Oh, okay.
And so I said, okay, I can do that. And I had a very athletic background as a child, playing multi-sports, but really primarily a basketball player.
Okay.
So I had hand-eye coordination, vertical jump, all of those things. So it really fit really nicely into a goalkeeper's position. I had a great time. They talked to me about coming out for the team. That tryouts were coming out at Marshall High School in Portland, Oregon. And I went out and made the team. And I had, as a sophomore, I had a senior that was a goalkeeper, and he kind of took me under his wings and kind of taught me some things. And I really excelled at that very quickly with, again, my athletic background.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that I was 18, I had made all city a couple years, my junior and senior year after he had graduated, and had a good reputation within that community, soccer community, as a goalkeeper. And we had the Portland Timbers, who were our home team that came into the NASL, North American Soccer League, back in 1975, and I was just a fan of theirs as a 15-year-old. And they had some different things that were going on, and I went out and did some things for them, and luckily was able to become basically a practice goalkeeper, almost
Like
a
the
third or
practice
fourth
squad
string.
kind of,
Exactly,
yeah.
a practice squad where I got to be exposed to a lot of very high-end soccer players that were grown men, and here I am, 18, 19 years old. And I learned a lot from some of the players that were teammates of mine, if you will. And I did that for about a year and a half, and realized at that point I was already married. I married Kathy, my wife, who I've been married to for 42 years now.
Good. Congrats,
And
man. That's
met
cool.
her, and I saw kind of the lifestyle that some of these guys lived, and I just realized I couldn't continue that, or didn't want to do that. I wanted to, be married and go down a different path in my life.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing, like I said, now a year and a half, and then stopped playing and started coaching at 20. as a goalkeeper coach for high school up in Portland. And then have really been coaching ever since, both goalkeepers and teams. You know, as my boys were born, I have two boys, Craig and Casey. And when they started playing in California, I started coaching them, and then have gone all the way up through California and now Colorado, and coached at the collegiate level here at CMU. I was a goalkeeper coach for 2 seasons for Josh Pittman.
Yeah.
Back in the mid 2008, 2009 type of time frame, and had teams through the club, premier teams, and have done some great things in my soccer career. I've helped a lot of kids, and that's really where I take the most pride of my career, is the impact I've had on kids. I always say I don't remember what the score was 2 years ago when I played a Colorado Rapids team, but I do remember the life situation that we were able to talk about or learn with this child, boy or girl, that made an impact on their life. And that's really why I like coaching, is that impact I can make on young kids' lives.
Dude, that's exactly where it's at.
Yeah,
too.
it is.
Yeah, it's and much needed now too. And I mean, the cultures that we live in right now is it's a broken culture. You know, we kind of have a broken society, right?
Very much so.
And a lot of broken homes, and I don't want to soapbox on that too much, but studies show that kids that are involved in some sort of organized sports or organized music or anything like that, they tend to do better later in life.
They do.
And it's having those coaches touching their lives, right, and really encouraging them, and probably a lot of times getting some positive attention where maybe they're not getting it at home or elsewhere. So super important, man, and a great passion, you know, that I think most coaches hold to, you know.
I do also.
Yeah.
I think deep down, a lot of times you can get, especially if you're younger, but not always when you're younger, you can get carried away with winning and, you know, do whatever it takes to win. But if they're 8 years old or they're 14 years old, that doesn't have to be the case and shouldn't be the case. You know, you should be a double gold coach, meaning you have 2 goals that you're trying to accomplish. You're trying, you know, it's obviously fun when you win.
Yeah.
But some of the best learnings you can take are if you lose and how you handle that, or if you have a game that's tied and you learn life lessons from each of those, from winning, tying, or losing a game, and how you react to those things, and how you can then take that as motivation into your next week's practices, your next week's games, etc.
Yeah, it's all just about learning and making a better version of yourself, whether that's
Exactly.
at your skill levels or mental capacity, education, any of that. So
It is, and it's so much just like a teacher. I mentioned my wife, Kathy, earlier. She's been teaching for, I think, almost 40 years now in the classroom and different things, and we just like to see the impact we can make on a child. And, you know, both of us have now had kids that have come through life, are married, have kids, and are now coaching.
that's
in
cool.
the soccer scenario, and it's so fun for me to see them come into that and see how they were when I met them, maybe when they were 9 or 10, and now how they're young adults with kids, and how they process everything, and I can kind of watch their games, and I have a big smile on my face when I watch some of my former players coach.
Yeah, that's the exact example of leaving a legacy, right?
Yes.
And so when you can kind of see the fruits of your labor, that's a great feeling.
It is.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better than that. It
Yeah.
really just, I sleep well those nights when I see those types of things happen.
Yeah.
So,
And it's just super rewarding.
yes.
Yeah, that's great. Let's talk a little bit then about when did you take over the program then?
I started as a general manager in December of 2007.
Okay. In 2007. I'm just trying to, when you say that, I'm trying to kind of figure out like where I was at in my life, and when who was it before you?
There was a gentleman, his name was Gary Krisman,
Okay.
and was the general manager, and then Peter Hemmingdinger
Mhm.
was the director of coaching for the Fire Club, and they worked there for multiple years and did a phenomenal job with
Mhm.
the club and helped grow it to that point when I came in 2007.
I remember when it was Grand Mesa Fire, right? And then they created an intermediate league.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was 4 teams: red, blue, green, and orange.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to try out. I want to say, if I remember right, this was the beginning stages of kind of solidifying the club, because it went from these 4 teams that you tried out for, and I can't quite remember what age group that was.
So I was going to ask how old you were when that came about.
Let's see. I think I was in like 4th or 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, if I remember. So that's ages 9, 10 or so. And I remember there being maybe 2 years of that. And like I said, it was the first kind of competitive
Level. Yeah.
thank you, that you had to actually try out for. So you had your rec leagues and everything, and still the blue and yellow shirts or blue and gold shirts. And then we had to try out, and I remember they organized like 4 coaches for that, and I remember being on the green team. And that team and that coach then morphed into, I want to say it was 2 years of doing that intermediate. I think that's what they called intermediate. And then they started, it seemed to me that then they started fire. And then we went to the blue and white jerseys. But I had the same coach and kind of the same players. Players come in and out, especially as they're going through middle school and just kind of deciding what they want to do. Exactly. And what they want to focus on. But had the same coach and pretty much the same core, I should say, of players all the way then through to my high school, to my senior year.
Okay.
And it was really great too, because 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade was super, super solid. And we were pretty good because you've been playing with the same kids for so long. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, do you remember Roberta Baker by chance?
I don't recognize the name.
Okay. She was our coach, and she did a really good job. I think it started, I'd love to sit down and have the conversation with her and be like, how did you even want to do this? Because I'm sure it was just like they needed some parents, right?
Parent volunteer,
mm-hmm.
right?
To volunteer to do this, and she did. And I don't know if she played. I don't even know if she played. That's so crazy. Mm-hmm. But she researched how to do practices and how to teach skill levels and stuff. And I mean, as an adult now, I just give her so much kudos, mm-hmm. because it was the very infant stages of fire. And then I remember, why can't I think of his name? There was enough talented kids that they decided to make a blue team and a gold team. Mm-hmm. So kind of like your A team and your B team.
Right.
Are you guys still doing that?
We have Premier and United.
Okay.
And Inferno are the 3 levels of teams. But mm-hmm. yes, the same type of deal. When I came in 99, mm-hmm. we had the blue and gold team. The blue being the higher team, the gold being the second team.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was and I didn't make the blue team, the higher team, mm-hmm. or whatever, but which was totally fine because I was playing with all of my friends that I played with.
The social part of it.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And I remember a couple players. Sorry, I'm just a fun little story, but I don't want to talk too much. But a couple players that would have graduated to the blue team, the A team, mm-hmm. And then the next year they were like, I want to come play for the gold team, mm-hmm. because they were having more fun with it.
Right.
And, although the blue team, and I mean, I played high school with them. I played high school competitive and high school ball, either with them or against them in other schools. And that blue team was solid.
Yeah.
A solid team. They were so good.
We've had a lot of great teams, prior to me coming to the Valley, my early years here in the Valley, and now, we've had some state cup champions on the girls' side, which is phenomenal, and some President's Day champions, which are big deals in the world of soccer because those are the type of teams that advance to regional tournaments that can then go to nationals. And so we've seen a lot of great success.
That's really cool. Talk about how a place like Grand Junction can compete with Denver teams successfully, because there's been years and years and years of being able to compete at a level with big cities.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic here in the Valley. The Grand Mesa Youth Soccer came into existence in 1977. There was a merger between what was called Grand Junction Soccer Club and AYSO, which is American Youth Soccer. And they merged together and kind of went ahead and started forming, as you said, competitive teams that would play in the state leagues, where what that means is that you have half your games away from Grand Junction, and primarily it's the Front Range. So Denver, up, I-25 corridor, from Pueblo up to Fort Collins. And now even days they go up into Wyoming to play. But these teams before I came, I've always heard stories about the teams and how good they were, and then got to experience some things in the early 2000s. I don't know, because we don't have as many players that we can choose from compared to
way small.
Some of these, like Cherry Hills High School now, may have 300 kids easy that are trying out for their high school team.
Just their
high school team for soccer. And when I coached at Central High School, I coached boys and girls at Central High School back in 2003 to 7, I believe it was. And, at Central, I had 25 kids. And so, we would go to playoffs 3 straight years, 3 of my 4 years there. We went to playoffs, but we'd play the Cherry Creeks, who had these numbers and didn't do well in playoffs. But going back to your question, I think, even before we had very talented parent volunteers who had a passion to help kids, did the research. And when you think about this, there was no Google. Now nowadays you can go onto Google and find anything you want. Right. Thousands and thousands of drills for soccer.
Yeah.
Parents didn't have that availability back then. Coaches didn't have that. So they really had to put the time in, and they had to have that passion to help kids. And I just think that we work hard. We have to get into a car. Back then, we would get into a car 4 or 5 times to make trips to Denver every other week to play. And that took strength, fortitude. And, a Denver team gets in a car maybe once a season, and comes to Grand Junction, and it's the biggest inconvenience they've ever gone through in their soccer careers.
Even back when I was playing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we just, we know what we have to do to compete at those levels. We have to work harder. We have to try harder. And we've been able to do that. Nowadays, we have professional coaches at our competitive levels. And so these are coaches who have all gone through their licensing. They played at a very high level, either collegiately, semi-professionally, etc. And we just see that level of skill going into our competitive teams. From a recreational standpoint, our bench strength, which is really our rec program, we have just about 1,100 kids this season and 125 parent volunteers who come out and help these kids and make an impact on their lives. So, it all has to work together to be able to make it work, so that when we look at those state cup championships or some of these high-level tournaments that our teams are winning, it all goes back to that grassroots program that started in 1977, and actually before that with AYSO and Grand Junction Soccer Club back in the 70s. So it just is a culmination of all that hard work over the years, and now we're seeing levels of success at a state level, competing against Arizona teams, competing against California teams, etc.
that brings up a really interesting point, because I remember when I was playing, we would always go to a March tournament in Las Vegas. But, you know, being March here in Grand Junction, we're still dealing with winter weather. You know, it's
Right.
that bipolarness of weather that we're dealing with. And so, and there was no indoor facility, which we'll get to in just a second. And so you really, I mean, maybe that tournament was actually kind of the kickoff to our season.
Exactly.
And so we would get in 2, maybe 3 practices before going into a tournament.
Right.
And those teams have been playing since
Nevada, California
Yeah,
teams.
they
Yeah.
probably never quit playing.
Yeah, 1 month a year they take off in the month of November.
Yeah.
And then they start back up. Yep.
And so we would go down there and usually just get slaughtered. And we knew that. But the cool thing about it is that if we did win a game, you know, it was a really big deal.
Yeah, or a close game. You know,
Yeah.
being able to compete.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
And I do think there was a couple years that we went pretty deep in the tournament, which was really cool.
Oh yeah.
Because I think we ended up drawing against some of the like New Mexico teams and stuff too. So which they're kind of dealing with a little bit of the same issues as far as weather,
Right.
Utah,
Right.
those types of teams. And so that allowed us to get a little deeper into it. But and the one thing that I remember most about that tournament was how windy it always
It could
was.
always be windy there, yes.
Holy smokes.
And it's no fun to rain, snow, sleet, but wind is I hate playing games in the wind or coaching games in the wind.
I mean, we're talking, you could literally kick the ball up in the air and it's going
It's
backwards.
behind you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a goalkeeper or whatever
Yep.
it may be. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly. That's always scary
Yeah.
as a goalkeeper.
Exactly. So that is one thing that I remember about those tournaments, but we loved it too, you know, because we got to play a little bit. And
Well, it's those memories, and you know, sports in general is very expensive. But I tell a lot of parents now, when they look at the cost of competitive soccer with coaching and uniform costs and registrations, etc., all the things that are associated with that, where can you go and have an 8-hour car ride trip to Denver with your teenagers and being able to talk and make those type of memories?
yeah.
It's invaluable to me, you know, and as a family of 2 boys, and my wife would be in one part of the state and I'd be in a different state.
Oh yeah.
But again, we think back with our boys now who are grown men, and think back to those memories, and
You almost want them again, right?
I wouldn't change that for the world.
Yeah.
No matter how much money it costs.
Right. It is priceless for sure. That's another thing I remember. Just my buddy Travis. I always wanted to go with Travis, who was on the team. He was our goalie, and actually he was Roberta's son, so she was a coach.
Okay.
And they had those big old '90s vans, the big ones.
Yeah.
And we would convert that whole back into a big bed. It was just fun, you know.
Yeah, when you
So
think
many-
back to those things.
Yeah, so many memories and so many trips of going over to Denver. And I also remember too, that was when they were just finishing up. Well, I think it was already finished, but they were still doing a lot of things with Glenwood Canyon.
Okay.
And
The construction of it, right.
yeah, I think it was when I don't know if they went from single lane to double lane or whatever it was, but I remember we had to plan for long stops. I mean, 45 minutes to an hour of just
Sitting there.
sitting there.
Wow.
Yeah. And so those were all things that we had to plan for.
Yeah. So you got to leave extra early to get there, you know, into Denver
Yeah.
for a 1 p.m. game.
Yeah.
You're having to leave at 6 to just make sure you were planning for the obstacles you
Exactly.
were going to face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what other tournaments is Fire involved in? I mean, there's the Vegas tournament that I think you guys are still trying to.
Yeah,
still
the
doing
Vegas
it.
tournament is now in January. And
Oh,
so our clubs,
gosh.
yeah, so they moved that up. And then we have a Phoenix tournament that happens in February.
Okay.
And then there's some other small little tournaments that some of our United teams will do. So they're not as high level as those tournaments will be. But you're doing the same thing. You're trying to get them that preseason experience so that when they go into the game, and if you don't have much success in that tournament, it's to build for your season.
Mm-hmm.
And then the postseason tournaments are really what you're looking at.
Oh, okay. Because that's obviously, too, when you're at your finest.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You've played the whole season,
Mm-hmm.
you're in form, and now you're going to go to, let's say, a Real Cup in Denver that's going to have 12 or 1,300 teams from around the country.
Holy
It's
cow.
also a big college showcase tournament
Okay.
to be able to go and perform
Scout
at your
for your-
best.
yeah.
Exactly. So it's you're building for that.
Is that at the Rapids complex then?
It's at the Rapids complex, yes.
Mhm.
They've got 22 fields, I believe, there at the Rapids
What a
complex.
great complex, man.
It really is phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember when that was built
Mhm.
and just thinking that is really, really cool.
Right.
Because is that also where a lot of your just season games are played then? Or
We don't play too many games at that complex. We will
Okay.
play some. Obviously, you have the Colorado Rapids, who have a youth club now associated with them,
Mhm.
and one of the largest clubs in the state, the
Mhm.
largest club in the state. So you will play some games there, but you play Aurora Sports Park, which has well over 20 fields as well. So,
Really?
yeah, so you're going to play different areas depending on where you're at. If you're down in the Castle Rock area, you'll play obviously down in that way,
Mhm.
down that area. But when you're in the Denver area, you're generally going to play Aurora or places like that.
Wow. That's in with really nice complexes too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Which is definitely different than when I was playing.
Yeah,
because it was still probably just a field painted on a park,
Right.
somewhere. I do remember playing in. There were maybe 2 teams over in Denver that had their own facility.
Complex, yeah.
Yep, and they were like the nice club team,
Mhm.
and so that was always kind of fun to play.
Oh, yeah.
because the field was really nice, and so, but yeah, it's changed.
It has. It's evolved.
Yeah, which is really, really cool.
It is in a lot of ways, and in some ways it's a detriment also, because you've got. It's it's a business, and so even though you're a nonprofit and you're doing these things, there are expenses of having paid coaches and having staff coaches now that you have to pay. Where back prior to me coming to the club, and slightly before then, everything was parent volunteer still.
Mm-hmm.
So as the stakes, if you will, have increased at a national level, you're trying to get the best athletes and have them have professional coaching to be able to take them to places that weren't as readily available back 25, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
both from a collegiate standpoint, and then those kids that small percentage that maybe can go beyond that.
Yeah. Huh. 2 things I want to talk about real quick. Do you guys or do you guys do any kind of like fundraiser type things at all, or?
The only fundraiser we do nowadays is our GMIT. That's Grand Mesa Invitational Tournament that is held in May. This year it's the 14th and 15th of May.
Okay.
And that really is our only fundraiser. That's a tournament that's been happening a long time here in the Valley. We used to have 2 tournaments, but now we just have the one. And it's always kind of been the club's fundraiser.
Okay.
They've done some other things of back in the day of selling candy bars and everything, but or gift cards or things like that. But nowadays we don't have the teams do any of that stuff. We just use the GMIT as our fundraiser.
How many teams are involved in that tournament?
We'll have teams from 5 different states that'll attend it, and we will have anywhere from 85 to 135 teams depending on the year. The average is generally about 115 teams, but last year was our first year back up from a COVID year, and so we had 85 teams, but they were great teams. The competition was really good, the levels that we had, and we had, I think, the Colorado Rapids sent well over 20 teams. Westminster Soccer Clubs always sends 10 teams, and so we get a lot of teams, along with our Western Slope teams, Arizona, Wyoming. It's really interesting as we're starting to get ready for that now, to look at the blend or the mix of teams that are coming in, both boys and girls.
That's awesome. You probably can't do the tournament too big because we basically have Canyon View Park or maybe Longs Park to be able to host. enough teams and get enough fields, basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we do both. We use both Canyon View. We use all 8 fields out there, and we have Longs Park that we use 6 fields. So we have 14 fields that are available to us. And so yes, to put on a quality product, we can't get too big just to have for the sheer number of having numbers. I want it to be. We have to do things differently here in Grand Junction to get teams to come from these different states instead of going to a bigger city and playing in larger tournaments. The hospitality, working with the hotels, the restaurants, catering to what their needs are the best we can, and we want them to leave Grand Junction saying, "Wow, this was a hidden gem."
Sure.
You know, this is an incredible place, and it's funny because we'll get people that will use this now as a place to potentially move, and they'll come in and say, "Yeah, we were here at the GMIT 2 years ago. We decided we loved it. We're transferring here, or we're moving here, and would love to get our kids involved in your club." So
cool.
that's a neat deal to do, but we do have to try hard. I think it's just like our teams have to do extra work, and to be able to compete at those levels, we have to do the same thing at a club.
Yeah. Boy, I didn't even think about making a tournament like fun.
Yes.
Not only just the tournament itself, but making it attractive enough.
Exactly. Making it an enjoyable, I mean, because again, parents are spending a lot of money to come to the tournaments, and it's not always about the winning, which it shouldn't be. Some teams will go that route, but we want it to just be a good experience that if you want to stay on a Monday in May and you want to do the wine tours, you know, in Palisade, or maybe a cold whitewater rafting trip, you know,
cold.
but something, you know,
Right.
that the Valley has to offer that, you know, where they're from maybe doesn't offer those types of things. Hiking or biking, obviously.
Right. Boy, my mind starts going into all these different directions of
Right.
like what you could do, and maybe how you could actually get the community involved in all that, just to make it really, really cool. I don't know. That's something for like another discussion that we can have. So, but all right. So, and the reason why I asked that about fundraising and stuff, I mean, now you guys have that really nice facility, which is just super cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
3 years old now.
3 years old.
Yes.
How long was that in the works?
I think it was in the works from 1977.
Oh, okay.
You know, Gary, as I mentioned earlier, and Peter Hemmingdinger, who were in the club, they did some really great things as being able to put away some monies from the GMIT into investment accounts with the goal of having this. You know, I was fortunate when I came in to be able to kind of extend that into it, along with our executive director, Sean Howe, who has been with the club, I think, 13 years now. I've been coming up on 15. Sean's been there 13 years. And just kind of putting the pieces together with the money that we had saved, along with a large capital campaign where our community really, business and individuals, donated a tremendous amount of money to help us get us off the ground, to purchase the property and then have the construction done of our facility. And it really has been, it's beyond our expectations of during the winter or summer. The facility's used from 4:45 in the afternoon during the weekdays till 9 o'clock, and then on Saturdays and Sundays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Oh, wow.
We have all of our competitive teams will do their winter training. We have rec programs. We have adult soccer that we're doing there.
Oh,
and
you
it's
are?
Just, yes.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
we
that.
picked
Okay.
up the adult portion of soccer about a year ago now, and we've had a season we had spring, summer, fall, winter, and now we're getting ready to go back outside. You know, the fall and spring are outside, but the summer and winter are indoors. So about 150 adults are playing.
Are you guys in charge of the adult league then?
There is Grand Valley Adult Soccer, who kind of took a little bit of a break, and so we kind of picked up the slack.
Okay.
GVAS is going to have a hot as hell outdoor tournament in June,
and it's hot.
Yes, it is. It was named correctly.
Yes.
So they're picking that back up. Obviously, we'll have the indoor portion that will continue through the summer and winter when it gets too hot to play out there. So there'll be I can envision a cooperative effort between the two.
And that's the same league and the same games that were played over in that Skyline
Yeah,
building?
exactly. Yeah, the
Now,
old Skyline building.
did they turn Skyline into more like just baseball stuff now, or?
There's actually volleyball.
Oh, no
Volleyball club,
way.
Grand Junction Volleyball Club. I actually went over there and looked at the facility. I think they moved the big portion of the warehouse into just warehousing, and then there's a back portion where the volleyball club came in.
Okay.
And I talked with Michelle and Wyatt Smith, who were involved with the volleyball club, about that. As they were looking to potentially use some of our space during the down
Sure.
parts to be
Yeah.
able to, cooperate with each other. But so they've got it kind of set up for volleyball now in the back portion of Skyline.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
That's cool. And then I think it's cool too that now that you guys have the facility, you can host those indoor adult leagues and stuff.
Yes, yeah, it really has been great. We're excited. We just got a donation from the Grand Junction Sports Commission, and they donated a scoreboard for us.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, really cool 4x8
Yeah.
scoreboard, and it'll primarily be used for the adult soccer games. So
Okay.
we got that hung a few weeks ago, and all wired up and cage in front of it, so it's ready. So that'll add to the excitement for the adults and for our 7v7 high school teams. They're playing indoor to be able to have that scoreboard there. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Just makes it a little more official, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yep.
Talk to me about just the experience of now having the facility. Like, what has it really done for just the overall league? For overall for the league as far as a home, having like a good, strong home.
What it's really done is it's like anything else that you do. The more that you do it, if you're playing guitar, the more that you practice and you work your chords, the better you're going to get.
Yeah.
Well, as you said, Troy, when you were playing, you would get done with the fall season and there wouldn't be anything happening. You might play basketball.
Right.
If you're a multi-sport athlete, you would do different things. But from a soccer specific sport, there was nothing that happened until maybe 2 or 3 practices before you would go and do a tournament.
Yep, exactly.
Well, now kids can play year round if they choose. We do take the month of November off.
Sure.
Because it is important to let kids be kids and let their bodies heal and everything like that. And,
Sure.
and we do encourage multi-sport kids.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a basketball player or you're a volleyball player, we try to accommodate that. And the Valley has got a good history of different sports. And I think it is important to work together to help these kids and try to balance not burning kids out. And that's always a concern. I have that concern as a director. They still need to have time to be kids and let them grow up and not just be robots.
Which is an issue, I think.
It is.
It's a big issue. And we can go into that a little bit, but I don't want to soapbox on that too much. But yeah, it's pretty all-consuming now, sports can be. Yeah, and so that's a big balance to try to, and I think that's more on the parents than anything.
I think it is. But I still think it's important, and sometimes I think this gets lost, is that the commitment. So if you make a commitment to play guitar, but then halfway through that you want to go and do this, and your commitment to this. Or if you're looking at a team sport type of thing, soccer, you've committed to soccer, but now you want to go and do this. Well, now you're hurting your team.
Right.
If you go and do this. So I think that the commitment level is important because that's a life lesson. I'm committed to my job. I'm committed to my family. I'm committed to going to college or high school. And, I think that's a big life lesson that needs to be learned. And we can help kids with that. But that commitment, you can't be everything to everybody,
right?
Type of deal. And I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit now.
No, that's totally fine.
But I think that's just important to be able to have that commitment and people trust your word.
I remember at a very young age, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I tried a season of baseball, and I can't remember if my mom let me play both at the same time or not. I just remember after baseball, she was like, "You have to choose. We're going to choose one now." And I chose soccer, and I'm so glad I chose soccer. And then that was just my mindset. This is what I'm going to do. And just that's all I did. And music. I did music in school too. So I guess that was the nice balance, right? I had my sports outlet and then I had my music outlet.
Exactly.
And I was able to do both actually for a very long time. Got a music degree at Mesa, but still doing adult soccer leagues and stuff. And actually, when I blew out my knee, and then I was like, okay, I think the sports stuff is going to be put on the back burner quite a bit. So,
well, it's important to try different things, and I encourage families and kids to be able to try different things. Find what you like. Don't just necessarily at a 4-year-old say, I'm going to do this. Yes, we want to be at 4-year-olds, we're going to be a fireman or a policeman or a soccer player.
Yeah.
But, try different things. Find what you like. And that way you've got that experiences of, I tried these things and I've settled in at a certain age and I'm going to be a track star or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
A soccer player, which obviously I would love.
Yeah.
But I do want kids to try different things and find what their passion is in life.
Let's talk a little bit, going back to the facility just a little bit more. I think it was, let's see, you had started a program. I don't think it was PDP. What are those programs that you guys do in the facility there?
We do PDP, which stands for Player Developmental Program.
Yeah.
And this is a kind of a pathway to competitive soccer for most kids. It's where, as I said, we have 1,100 kids with 125 volunteer coaches, and thank God for those coaches because they do make an impact on these kids' lives. The PDP is led by our professional coaching staff, so they're getting a little bit more, and we start those programs for those that are interested at 5 and 6 years old. Again, it's all age appropriate, it's fun, so it's not a drill based program that just you're trying to pound it into kids.
You're just getting touches on balls, basically.
You're getting touches on balls.
Yeah.
And that's where we talked about, with the indoor facility, it just gives you that chance to touch the ball in a productive manner, meaning that you could practice all day long, but if you're practicing incorrectly, you're not really gaining much.
True.
And so with our PDP program, it's going to give our staff coaches are going to be able to work with these young kids and start to give them the skill sets to be able to proceed. And then when they're, U11, 10 years old, they can go to tryouts and have a good base to which to draw from as they continue to grow then up through the competitive programs.
It's definitely different here in America as far as soccer in America has always been real different than the rest of the world because, at a really early age in other countries, these little kids are starting to get touches on ball, and the soccer culture is so huge. That's all it is.
Right.
And so, I see these videos of these tiny little kids, just their ball skills are incredible.
Right.
Incredible. And so it's, and because soccer is the thing, right? It's the big sport in those. Well, and in a lot of countries, it's all it is.
It is.
Yeah.
The World Cup, which will be happening in November.
Super
in
excited,
Qatar.
man.
Yeah, it'll draw well over a billion with a B people watching these games.
Right.
And it's their passion, and they go. It's interesting. There is a huge difference though between soccer in America and soccer, let's say in Brazil or even in England. In those countries, soccer is really subsidized by the government a lot, or in England, it's going to be you're going to be involved with a club, Arsenal or Man U or Man City, and they have academy programs, and all that goes down into those programs where those kids won't have to pay. They're taken into these academies for this purpose.
Really?
In the United States, it's different.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're never going to have our government, which we don't want, paying for sports across the board.
Yeah.
But it is so the parents. Are having to pay for these things. And, we do, I think, a very good job at our club with our scholarship program. We do about $20,000 a year in scholarships for kids to be able to help kids play where they have a difficult time. We have some other things that we do for that. So we're keenly aware of that issue, but soccer or sports in America is different. Specifically soccer, because it is different of how these other countries manage to get kids into these programs.
Right. And you're competing with so many other sports.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, and then lacrosse has really gotten popular.
It has.
And so which is just another sport, and which I think the diversity is great.
I do too.
It's really cool.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
It really is.
And my brother and I have a lot of conversations about kids that do play multiple sports tend to excel later in a specific sport when they really get competitive, and that's kind of like their commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you were just kind of alluding to. So it's especially basketball for some reason. Like basketball can play into so many different facets of other sports.
Yeah. I mean, hand-eye coordination, weak side, strong side.
Yes.
There's so many things. And I think coming from a basketball background myself, it made the transition to soccer very easy for me. I do some other coaching of some different sports now, and I can use, going back to basketball, some of the things that I'm doing now when I'm doing some other coaching for some different sports now.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So, yeah.
I like the strong side, weak side that you just talked about, because that's super important in soccer.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and I, that's something that I never really worked on in when I was growing up playing. It was, and it just wasn't that big of a. Well, I don't know. I can't say it wasn't a big deal, but the kids that were, what's the word, ambidextrous?
Yes.
Shined.
Yes.
Those kids really, if you can make a move this way and then you can do the exact same move the other way,
as a defender, you don't know which way to overplay something.
Yeah.
If you only can use your right foot and you get overplayed to only use your left, you're going to struggle. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
And if you're playing on the left side of the field, then you're constantly having to make an adjustment to try to be strong side,
right?
If you're crossing the ball or whatever. So so all you kids, work on both sides.
Exactly.
get that down. I want to kind of talk about, I remember at the coaches meeting that you held, you kind of talked about the philosophy that you're really trying to bring to Fire, and that you're really trying, you're doing research and looking at all these big clubs in Europe and kind of seeing how they're doing and really trying to pull that over to what you're doing with Fire.
Right.
And talk about that. Like what are some of those things that you learned from like doing research from these other clubs and stuff that you're really trying to pull and kind of make the culture here?
Well, and it goes back, I think, to that the philosophy of winning at all costs type of thing versus the development of an athlete. Sean Howe, our executive director, Danny Molyneux, who is our director of coaching, and our coaching staff has done a lot of research, as you said, about how to help an athlete reach their potential in any given sport. In this case, soccer, obviously. The more touches you have on the ball, the more individual skills you have as a soccer player, the better you're going to be. The individual skills, being comfortable on a ball, is going to enable you at some point to be able to go against a defender and make a move or get past that defender. It's that confidence on the ball. In a lot of sports, basketball, for instance, you would have passing drills and everything like this, which are great and are essential for basketball. But in soccer, we want kids to be able to take the ball and be able to dribble players and have that confidence.
Yeah.
When they get to a little bit older age group, when they start getting into competitive at 11 and 12, teaching the passing drills is very easy compared to teaching individual skills and having confidence on the ball. So again, what that'll mean is that you will go against teams that are going to play direct, meaning that they're going to kick and run. It doesn't take a lot of skill to do that. You just are faster.
Ball, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just being able to kick the ball. You have faster athletes. There's no skill really involved in that, or very little. And then what we see is you may lose some games when you're younger, but you're developing yourself. And now you go 2 years later and you play against a team like that can only play a direct method style, and we're beating them because we're playing soccer.
Yeah.
And now our athleticism is caught up. We're just as fast, we're just as strong, but now we have skills on the ball to be able to beat these teams. And it just frustrates teams. The problem we have in Grand Junction now, and we've actually had it for a few years, but it seems to be getting worse every year, is that we have teams that don't want to come to Grand Junction.
Right.
It used to be a deal, well, it's 4 hours or 3.5 hours, it's this much money. Well, now they're coming to Grand Junction, or more often they're coming to Grand Junction. They're making that trip and they're losing. So now you're adding insult to injury.
Right.
We just traveled for 4 hours,
Right.
and we're losing,
Yeah.
and we don't want to do that anymore. So, in my opinion, COVID gave teams. When we came back from COVID, we missed an entire year. When we came back from that, people started using COVID as an excuse to not come to Grand Junction. I don't have enough players because X. You would reschedule a game to the end of the year, and oh no, I'm sorry, we're not going to come. So out of a 8 or 10 game schedule, we may lose 20% of our games because teams just don't come here, or they're allowed to not come here, in my opinion,
Right.
through the state association. And those are things that is hard for the state. I understand that, but it's still something that hurts soccer. Our kids don't get as many games, and we have to find other ways for them to get games on a more local basis.
Yeah. Oh man, that would be just so frustrating.
It is.
Yeah.
And the parents get frustrated because, again, unfortunately, the state doesn't refund money for games like that don't happen. So the parents are still having to pay the money.
Right.
You're paying for your coaching, but they're getting 20% less games. So it can be a frustrating or a sore point, which we all understand and are trying to work with the state to rectify that.
Yeah.
But it isn't an easy answer.
No, it's not. And that whole attitude, I guess, I don't know if it's that attitude of Eastern Slope teams coming over here. I mean, that goes even way back to when I was playing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's frustrating. But I think you brought up a really good point too. Like if we can make it a destination place, for those teams to come, and if there's some kind of cool, fun things that somehow Grand Junction can host, maybe that'll change. I think that would be something really cool to look into, as like a Grand Junction community.
Right.
What could the community do to
visit Grand Junction, Chamber of Commerce, different things like that to be able to go. And we've worked a lot with different entities for that. I mean, even working with like Bananas Fun Park, it's a great, and just letting teams and parents know things to do in Grand Junction while you're here. And, we want you to come over. We want you to get beat. And then we want you to go and spend money in our city and restaurants, and then, come back, and move here in a couple of years and bring your child, let him play for us.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I want to stay positive about this topic, but I do think it's something that you and I were talking to beforehand just a little bit. Like parents needing to understand that development stage, right? And how important that development stage is compared to winning. And so that, the hope is that, a lot of the Fire parents will have a chance to maybe watch this. And this is a segment too that I think I will splice out specifically so that we can really try to get it spread out throughout the league. But just ages 4, I think, is what you're starting at, right?
Yeah, ages 3 basically, U4, which means under 4.
Okay.
So in the fall they would be 3 years old.
There's 3 years old playing.
3 years, and it's the best league. I absolutely love it. It's one of those leagues that We tell parents when they our coaches and parents that I talk with when they come to the field that I want them to surround the field. Because even though there's lines there, 3-year-olds don't recognize lines.
Right.
And so if the ball goes out of play or out of touch, just gently put the ball back in so they can keep going. Because if there's a stop and play, they're done.
Yeah. Right.
So,
yeah.
But it's just, it doesn't matter. They'll score on any goal. It doesn't matter. And 3 versus 3 soccer is not 3 versus 3. It's 5 versus 1 because your own teammates are trying to steal the ball from you because they don't recognize sharing yet.
That's still happening in my
smile.
U7 or U7 Beckham's team right now. It's still I'm coaching their team, right? And so I'm always just like same team. So that's still happening.
But I do love watching those ages.
Yeah. So let's continue on then, that developmental stage and just how important it is for parents to understand what it is that you guys are trying to do with that development stage.
We want kids to be able to go out and no matter what their situation is in their lives, maybe soccer is the only positive that they have. And we want to keep that in focus. I think that I learned a lesson about 15 years ago from a gentleman by the name of Paul Kane, who is now the district AD for District 51 here in Grand Junction.
Okay.
But he was the athletic director at Central High School. And I had a player who was struggling with their grades, and we had certain standards that you had to meet. And one of the easiest things for me to do would to have been to cut this player. But Mr. Kane asked me a question, and it stuck with me these last 15 years, and I've shared this, is that the best thing for that player? And you have to balance the best thing for that player versus the best thing for the team concept and everything. And I wasn't doing as good a job as I would do now in those types of situations. So, we want parents to understand that this is their time, really, and it's hard as a parent having 2 kids. And I'll be totally honest with you, Troy. My oldest son is Craig. He's 35 now and a tremendous young man. But I was so hard on him because he was my firstborn. He was a goalkeeper, and I was one of those crazy parents.
Okay.
And I talk in my coaches' meetings about this. And I apologize to my son almost every time I see him still to this day because of my actions. And I was trying to live vicariously through Craig as a man in my 20s at that point. And I just had to realize, and by the time my second one came around, I was a little bit better. He wasn't a goalkeeper. Kathy, my wife, said, "You will not make this one a goalkeeper." So it was a little bit easier, but we still had our moments. But and it's easier to talk about than it is to do a lot of times. But I talked to those coaches about, really, if you're coaching your own child, how you kind of want to handle yourself. And it's hard as an adult because you want to have almost an adult conversation with a child, and it's tough to have that. But we just want kids to be able to develop on their own time frame. Don't compare yourself with little Joey down the street or that's on the team. We see cases all the time, and I tell parents this: the best player at 11 years old generally isn't the best player at 14.
Go into that just a little bit.
You have to give kids a chance to develop on their scale. I don't have a scale where you need to be able to do what Johnny's doing. Okay. And we see kids that will make, let's say, a united team, which is our secondary team at 11. But through their development in a year and a half later, whatever that time frame is, now all of a sudden they're up on the blue team. And I've seen kids that started out on a secondary team, a united team. They made the premier team, and then when they got to high school, they were all conference 4 straight years. Went on and had an opportunity to play in college. But they started as 11-year-old on the second team. I mean, it's almost the Michael Jordan theory or thought of, he didn't make a varsity team as a sophomore, but went on to become who he is and was. And so it's just, again, letting putting kids in positions to have fun when they're young
Mm-hmm.
and learn as much as they can. Again, you have parent volunteers, and through those parent volunteers, you're going to have different levels. You could have a parent volunteer who played collegiately.
Yeah.
You could have a parent volunteer who never did, but wants to make sure that these 7 or 8 kids get an opportunity to go out there and play.
Yeah.
And so, but
Well,
just
especially like if you're like, in order for this team to happen, we have to have a parent step
exactly.
up.
And we have to have that conversation each year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is my 30th season of coaching, 2 seasons per year. And I've only had to disband 2 teams in those 30 years. And this is where we had a parent, where we had team where parents just couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are always the hard decisions to make. Luckily, I've only had to do it a couple times
Mm-hmm.
in 30 seasons. But by having those parent volunteers, and they're so important, and then also giving them some tools to be able to help them be successful. Because
Which
again,
I think you guys have done a great job.
I think we have. I
Yeah.
think we've missed the mark a few times, which is
Mhm.
always hard when you have that many teams and that
Mhm.
many kids. It's hard to, but it's one of those things too. Is it's important to come to meetings. It's important to look at the newsletters. It's important to look at the different opportunities that we give and resources that we give to help you be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do that, then it's easy to blame the club. But and I'll take that. I mean, that's just
Sure.
part of it. But it always makes me, when I do get those, I had one this last year. It makes me reevaluate, and what can we do better
Mm-hmm.
to give more resources to our coaches. So.
Yeah.
But it's just letting kids have the opportunity to be kids and play and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
The social aspect is so important for kids. And, we've changed some rules from where the state has certain things from birth years
Mm-hmm.
to now we keep it by your grade level in school.
Okay.
Because if we'd gone to birth year, you could have kids in the 3rd grade class that would be on 2 different teams because they're born in the same year.
Okay.
And that's the way the state does it at a competitive level all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how the world does soccer. Well, we
Yeah.
chose to keep it at the grade level so that kids can stay together with their classmates in most situations.
I think that's really smart too, because when you do it by the birthdays and stuff, like there could be a tremendous gap between a player that just turned a certain age, right, or hasn't turned a certain age yet,
Right.
And I mean, you're looking at, well, especially for boys. Well, no, actually for girls at the younger age too,
Mhm.
because those girls are sprouting up and getting,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, they're growing so rapidly in that age 7 to 10, you know. And if you have almost a year between one player to another, it is huge. Actually, I just witnessed that at our soccer game on Saturday.
Mhm.
And I mean, the kid on this other team, I mean, he was 3 inches easy taller than almost not only his teammates, but ours as well.
Right.
And granted, he's good at soccer anyways,
Right.
but I mean, just the physicality that he was able to demonstrate was really huge. So I actually appreciate the fact that you guys are kind of sticking with the grades, you know, because they're and you touched up on the social aspect too, because they're playing with the kids that they're going to school
Right.
with, and that's really cool.
It is. That way they can go and talk it on Monday morning about their game on Saturday and,
Yeah.
and I got the score or whatever
Yeah.
it may be.
Yeah.
And we really believe that's the best thing for our club to do, where I don't know how many other clubs in the state maybe follow that rather than
wonder
just
why.
the age group, because it's what U.S. Soccer, now they do give us the option at the rec level to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things that happen as the kids get older that it does make sense. But I want them to enjoy from age 4 to 11 with playing with their own age group,
Mm-hmm.
or with their own class group, or school, following the school calendar. And we'll deal with the 11-year-olds when they get that and what that means as they're transitioning now to a competitive level,
Yeah.
if that's the route that they choose.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, again, going back to the development stage, just so that parents can really understand, but like boys, I mean, the physical development that boys go through, and, try and, that, especially that time of like catching up to the size of their feet,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and all of that. Like how, walk us through, like what that's like, because you can have a kid that looks rather clumsy, at the age of, let's say 9 or whatever, and then they're just this superstar in like 2 or 3 years once they get past this like physical development stage and stuff. So is there things that you can see? Is there, or how do you even look at a kid who's like running around and just fumbling over himself, and because as we're walking across the field to get to our field, and I see this specific type of age group, and it just is so goofy. I mean, you're looking at all these boys and they're trying their hardest, and their bodies just are not caught up with what's going on up here, and so I mean, I don't know, what do you see, or what's important during that time at all?
It's not a lot you can do about that, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And I can go to a goalkeeping standpoint when I get let's say a 9-year-old goalkeeper and a boy, and they are tall, and you can see that they're clumsy at that point. Their coordination hasn't come in.
Right, that's sort of.
But what I look for is their determination, their no fear attitude, if you will, as a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
That they're willing to put themselves into situations that are key to being a goalkeeper. And then we talk about, okay, it's going to be a few years before you get to the point where you're caught up.
Yeah.
And I have one goalkeeper in mind that he is. I've been working with him since he was 11, and he's now I think 14 or 15, but he's 6'2". And he is.
How old is he?
He's, I think, 15 now.
Holy cow! And he's 6'2"?
So 14 or 15. I think he's going to be starting high school here shortly at
Wow.
Fruta. And he's, we've had to struggle through those years and everything, but we're starting to see now all of a sudden everything catch up. And again, because of his height and his wingspan. And if he can continue to develop in the next 4 years, he has the potential, if he wants, to play collegiately.
Yeah.
And he's not even on our top team right now, but there's some things there that I can see happening, and I've seen happen with players like that, throughout my career. Boys, I tend to refer to them as squirrely boys.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what they are, that 7, 8-year-old, and compared to girls, which are a completely different way their way they act, and their mannerisms, etc. But it is fun to kind of watch that type of progression when you see these athletes go, and that's. It just brings a smile to your face when you see that.
Yeah.
But again, it's just letting kids and having parents understand that they're going to develop in their time frame, and we can give them the tools. We can have them involved in these programs, but we've got to let that go. The 10,000 hour rule, where you do something. To 10,000 hours, you should be pretty proficient at it.
Sure.
After that time frame, it's that kind of a theory that just gives them the time to be able to develop at their deal, and they may choose to do something else, and that's fine.
Right.
But whatever it is, it's just all leading towards, a certain goal that they may have, or just in life in general. Now I'm an 18-year-old, and I can skip rope, or I couldn't do that at 9.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's got to be smoother for the girls, don't you? Is it?
I think it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, I coached boys primarily for probably the first 30 or 26 years, probably. And then I got involved with coaching girls here before I went and coached high school girls and boys, and then had some premier girls teams here that did very well. And girls, I've learned that they want to please the coach. They will go through a wall for you. Okay. Boys will take criticism a lot of times, and especially as they get a little bit older, and they're going to use that as their motivation. I'm going to show coach that I can do this type of deal.
Yeah.
And so being able to handle both boys and girls are different. One of the things that, being an old school coach, There is a player, her name is Mia Hamm.
Oh, yeah.
Mia Hamm, in my estimate, is probably to me, she's the best U.S. player, but I think she's the best player ever. She went to North Carolina, and her coach was Anson Dorrance, who has won well over 20 national championships on women's soccer.
Wow.
And Mia had a quote that I don't know what year she did this, but she goes, "I want a coach that will treat me like an athlete on the field and a lady off of it." And I really take that to heart. And I there are differences between coaching girls and boys, but they're athletes. And I want girls to know that it's okay when you're on this field to be an athlete. And, girls will, if a girl falls, they will go over and, "Are you okay?" and or try to help you up. And, we went in during the run of play, we want to change that a little bit, where boys will just purposely go over and hit and just take great joy in it, you know. So there are differences there. But I really enjoy, because I've coached girls for so long, I really enjoy girls and what they've done. For me as a coach, it's helped me become a better coach because I've had to exhibit more patience and understanding and not as reactive as I once was. Not saying that I'm great at it still, but I do think about things a little bit differently now between coaching girls.
That's really, really cool. Yeah. That's one of the things I do like about soccer is that, the competitiveness. I guess it's just the sport alone. It allows a great level of competitiveness with boys and with girls, and you don't necessarily get to see that a whole lot in the other sports.
Right.
And a lot of it too is because, although there's a lot of girls that want to play football or even baseball, but I don't know. It's just a great sport, man. I love the sport of soccer, and overall, I think it's a great opportunity for any kids, boys and girls, to be able to play.
Right. And we talked about, earlier you alluded to when we first began about the benefits of sports and these things. And what was really interesting, and I didn't realize this until I started coaching at Central for the girls, is that girls who participate in athletics are much better. There are, I don't know how I want to word this. They don't have as high a percentage or high a chance to get certain cancers.
Oh.
Because being active and everything, and your body being active and everything, it's healthier for them.
Okay.
And so there's health benefits for girls playing sports versus girls who don't. Obviously, there's graduation rates that are higher for athletes or players that are doing extracurricular activities, band, all those things and everything. But sports in specific, it's a healthy item to get involved with from a girl's standpoint for that type of aspect.
Really
so
cool.
I really like that part.
Nice. That's cool. I'm grateful for the program, man. And it's been cool to see it grow over the years. Like I was saying, it basically started with these 4 teams, green, blue, red, and orange, and to see what it is now, it's just neat. I love seeing success stories, and I think you're a part of that, man. Like, I think you've done a really, really good job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I take great pride in it. I love Fire FC. It's been part of my life for the last 23 years.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me.
Not that I'm alluding to anything, but at some point you're going to want to retire and you're going to want to just kind of enjoy life and stuff. So what does that look like for you then, as far as like getting someone to come? Are you already kind of shaping and bring?
Yeah, I mean, Sean, we at the club, I think we're one of the best clubs in the state because of our direction from Sean Howe, our executive director, myself as a general manager handling the day-to-day operations, and then our coaching staff. And we try to look at things, not just what's in front of us today, but we try to plan, 3, 5, 10 year type of plans.
Right, yeah.
Excuse me. And as I'm getting up in age now, and we've had conversations about this, and we have some plans in place that'll start to happen, and I don't know when that's going to be, but it'll be sooner rather than later, I'm sure. But I'm sure even with that being said, I'll be involved with soccer at some point,
Yeah.
probably more behind the scenes than as much as I'm out in front of the scenes now. I'm not. I enjoy talking about soccer, but I'm really more of an introvert and would rather, just
Okay.
go, and
Yeah.
that people find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
But I really do like to just kind of, be with me and my family
Yeah.
and my wife now, and do those things. But I'll be involved in some sort, consulting, be involved, maybe working with the city to get our contracts for our fields or
Sure.
whatever it may be, some
Yeah.
way to be able to help the club.
That's really cool. One last thing, and then we'll wrap this up. So, World Cup is in a unique time of the year this
Yes,
year.
very much so.
And it's it's actually during your guys' month off or something like that. What are your thoughts of like doing some cool things for like maybe some of the U.S. games at the facility?
Yeah, we had the draw for the World Cup last week, and we were all excited. We have a couple English coaches, and Sean and myself were there watching the draw, and England chose first in Group B, and then the United States, and so
Yeah.
all of us were cheering because we want to play against England, and England wants to play against us. So we've already got that little rivalry going in the office,
Yeah.
like we did 12 years ago. I think it was the last time the USA played England in the
Yeah.
World Cup, and the USA did win.
Yep.
So yeah, we've already talked about that. Back 12 years ago, we were working, or the Avalon put on a program where they would televise those games. One of the things that we were concerned about is because it's in Qatar, what the time change or
Yes.
the time differences.
Yep.
But I did read something, I think over the weekend, that all of the games, all the USA games are going to be at noon our time. Now, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that any further, but yes, it'd be phenomenal. We play, right now our first game is going to be either against Scotland, Wales, or Ukraine.
That's
they have a
right,
playoff.
yeah.
And our second game, which will be on, I believe it's November 25th, the Friday after, the
Black Friday.
Black Friday,
Yeah.
exactly, against England.
That will be fun.
That's going to be
Yeah.
the one. So we're
Yeah.
we're working on some ways, either something at our facility to be able to put a big screen in and get it in, or possibly at the Avalon. I think that would
Okay.
be phenomenal. And
Yeah.
dress up if you're an England fan or
Yeah.
a United States fan,
Yeah.
and come out and see the game. And you've got the pub downtown. I'm not sure the name.
Goat and Clover.
Yeah, I believe so. So I think you've got some different things
Yeah.
that could happen, and so I think it's going to be a great event the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be super fun, and what a great day to have England play the U.S.
Right, right.
So it's excited.
It is.
I'm super excited. I was so pissed off when America didn't get in.
Oh my gosh.
In 18.
Yes.
And so here we are, and we're in it again, and we've got a really young team.
We do.
And it's really interesting because they're not as scrappy as our teams in the past,
Right.
and it's that scrappy and grit that has kind of made our success in the World Cup. And so it's just going to be really, really interesting, and I hope that, and it might be just because they are so young, but I hope they can do well. These last couple qualifiers, against Mexico and then against Costa Rica, wasn't too impressed, with some of the play that was going on.
Right.
But they've got 5 months or so to. No, I guess not quite that much. Well, yeah,
In November, yeah.
Yeah, they got some time to work on it, and maybe now that pressure's off and they're in, they can really start to develop. But
And that's it. It's just going to be, like we said, it's just time on the ball, time together,
yeah,
which is always difficult because a lot of our players don't play in America. They play overseas in Europe.
right.
And so, again, being able to get players, a nucleus of players together to play friendlies in preparation of the World Cup is always difficult.
Yeah.
But I think that they'll do it. I'd like us to get some games off of out of the United States and get them off of on foreign shore.
Yeah.
And be able to deal with those types of pressures, because I think that's a big deal when we look at it, even in the women's game, and they're playing this next Saturday against a team that is just, I think they come to America because we've got great facilities and everything.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to see us go and play more in these countries like the Costa Ricas, which we've never won in.
Oh, okay.
And, and we're finally starting to get some success in Azteca in Mexico City, where we never had success there.
Right.
But get that type of experience under our belt. And I think that's going to help build that grit, that type of almost a chip, or how we deal with adverse situations rather than always playing on home soil.
Yeah. Well, especially too, because I mean, I think America does a pretty good job of attendance at the games and stuff, but they're
Very much so.
But they're, nationally though, they're just, well, I don't know what happened, but back in like the 2000s and maybe the early teens, it was such a big deal. Like American soccer was so big, and now it's like for some reason it's been put on the back burner a little bit, and it's just not. And maybe it's because they didn't make it in 18.
I think there was a letdown because there was a 20-year plan, and that 20-year plan, in my opinion, failed, and we missed that cycle. Now we're back, and I'm hoping that with this group of kids, young men, the coaching staff, we'll be able to do some things. And I can see it in the group we're in. I can see us getting to the round of 16s, and then the semis are a good potential.
Yeah.
So
I'm so glad that we got the draw that we did, because Canada's draw is super tough.
Yes.
Mexico's draw is really, really tough. And so it's
groups of death almost. Yeah.
It's really interesting to see that, we came in third, out of the CONCACAF, and but we got a better draw.
Right.
And so
it's all of, we'll see. I mean, we're right. You couldn't have asked for a better draw, in my opinion.
It's true.
I mean, we've had success against England. Obviously, England's a world power. I think 5th in the world right now.
And they have a really good squad.
They
this
do.
year.
They do. And so we'll just have to see. You got to grind it out. You got to be able to go in there, and American soccer is looked down a lot in the world's game, and so everything. So we can use that as motivation, get some of that grit, get the Landon Donovan and the Clint Dempsey type of attitudes out there.
And that's the grit that I was talking about.
Right.
Just barreling down. I will say this about our men's team: I'm not confident in our one-on-ones. There's a big lack in our one-on-ones.
Right.
And I think Clint Dempsey, he could go one-on-one. Landon Donovan, with his speed, with Landon's speed, he could go one-on-one. And but Pulisic, but even in Chelsea, I don't see him going one-on-one too much.
No, you really don't. He's one of those players, Weston McKennie, who's coming off an injury and hopefully will be ready. There are some players there. My biggest concern is we can start to get a build-up in it, but again, our finishing. Yeah. Again, you can go to that Mexico game where really there were 2 goals.
Should have been 2-0.
Easy, if not 4.
Yeah.
But give up the 2, and there should have been 2 that were just tap-ins, easy goals, but nothing's easy in soccer.
That's true.
Anything can happen. The ball can bounce funny.
That's true.
But those are finishes that we have to make. In soccer is not, you're not going to score 100 points in basketball. It's going to be a very low-scoring opportunity or low-scoring game. You have to take advantage of your opportunities. Yeah. So that's where I'd like to see the finishing part of it.
That's true. That's true. But that goes for every team.
It does. It does.
And we've seen that was, let's see, was it last World Cup? I think that was Germany's issue last World Cup because, they're a powerhouse and they have been for so long.
It's my favorite team.
Yeah, it's actually one of them. Yeah, exactly. But they could not finish last World Cup, and they didn't make the semis.
You have to take advantage of your opportunities, and sometimes it just isn't there. And you can do everything you're supposed to do, and the soccer gods don't smile on you.
Right. Well, Larry, thank you so much, man. This
Well,
has
thank
been a
you, Troy.
pleasure, and just to be able to kind of go back in time a little bit, from when I was in the league and in the club, and just to kind of see where it's at now. I love Grand Junction's success stories,
Yes.
and I think Fire is definitely one of
Right.
them. And I look forward to what you guys are doing for the future as well. My 7-year-old is involved in it right now, and I ask him like every week. I'm like, "Do you really, really enjoy playing?" And he kind of hesitates at first, and but I think and I don't want to go too long on this, but you're competing against video games and devicing and all of that stuff, which is it just sucks those kids in.
Yeah.
And so I start talking to him, and and we have this little conversation about it, and I was like, when I see you out there, you're loving it. You love scoring, and I have this little thing. If he gets a hat trick in a game, he gets to go get a slushie.
There you go.
And that is his number one motivator
Yeah.
right now at that age.
Yeah.
And he'll score one goal, and he's like, 2 more, and he yells it too. He's like, 2 more, and I get a slushie.
There's no hiding that.
Yeah,
2 more to a
exactly.
slushie.
Yeah, and so that's it's just something that we're doing between me and him.
Right.
But I hope that I'm not going to force it on him, but I hope that he can continually participate in that and wants to and desires to, and so
and whatever he ends up choosing, have a passion to do it.
yeah.
And have that
He's
carry on to
passionate,
your life.
man. I mean, when he scores, he's almost to the point where I'm like, all right, like everybody knows he scored, man.
Exactly.
But he gets so into it. But
so I'll get the email next week about we're playing against Troy's team.
Yeah,
and I'll get that email. Thanks, Troy.
Can you please tell that player to calm it down?
Yeah, tell that coach to have that player settle down. Yeah, there you go.
But I love it, and if he can just use that passion to fuel him, which I think he's doing, and,
good.
But
if you see smiles on their faces, coaches ask me, what can I do to be successful? At the end of the season, if your kids are smiling, you had a successful season at a recreational level.
Yep.
Doesn't matter the score, how many games you won, tied, lost.
Yeah.
If the kids are smiling.
And we'll end on this note, because we played the best team in what I consider the age group last week. They've got and it's hard too, because if you have one super talented kid, he just stands out big time, and they have actually two talented kids on their team, and I mean they can pretty much. And I appreciate the coach, and I can't remember his name, but he's well aware of the talent of those two boys, and so he actually, like, they'll score a couple goals, and then he'll have them draw back and kind of stay in that diamond shape that you want us to try to get into. And so I appreciate that, because it did get out of control. They scored a lot of goals, and we actually were able to put in another player.
The power play rule.
Yeah, but I love the fact that I saw our team, first of all, take the challenge on, because I saw who we were playing, and we played them last season, and I was like, this is the best team in our age group. This is the best team in our league, guys. You guys are going up against the best team. And I just want you guys to stick to what and
game plan.
And listen to us. And they progressively just got better and better and better throughout the game, and it was so cool to see. And I again, not that we're keeping score, but I mean, you gauge it however.
The reality is that everybody knows.
And I turned to the coach and I said, "Hey, would you mind if we throw another one in?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I actually meant to ask to see if you wanted to do that." And so we did. And I know that the added player is actually a huge thing. It does add quite a bit. But the game, it just ended up being a good game.
Right.
Like, lots of opportunities on both sides of the ball, lots of great individual effort, from especially from what I saw from my boys. And even though we technically lost, I mean, the boys, they knew they played well,
right?
And they all had a lot of good opportunities. And that's one thing that I actually appreciated about our boys, is that we're having like on an average of 3 to 4 different players scoring every game.
Fantastic.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is great.
Right.
And and there's even this one Thomas, this kid. It's his first time ever playing. Which he's in the U7. So he's already kind of 3 years behind
Right.
in development, which is huge because they're sponges at this age group. And something clicked.
Yeah.
And he was getting, and he's a real small kid, and physically he's 3 to 4 inches smaller than everybody on the field, and something clicked, and he was just scrapping in there and getting the ball, and it just, as a parent, as a coach, I mean, you just see those things, and you're just like, this, it's just so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see the development and them getting it, and it ended up just being a great game, and both sides, all sides of the parents and stuff, I mean, it's U7, right? But you watched, like, all of a sudden these kids were like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gloves are off, and it's just boom, boom, back and forth.
Oh,
and
that's phenomenal.
it was just really, really cool.
Yep.
And I could tell that the parents saw it too.
Yeah, and they get
really
involved
cool.
and they get excited for their kids, and when you get those type of experiences, that's what it should be. You don't
Yeah.
always get those, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but that's what you strive for.
Yeah.
And people will make mistakes, and parents can get excited over
Sure.
the simplest things sometimes.
Yeah.
And you just got to step back and take that breath, and which is hard.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Everybody recognized how well both teams played.
Right.
And I think that at this level is just it's just so beautiful.
Well, and that's what's going to bring the whole level up, that age group up. When you
Yeah.
can get continued games like that whole age group is going to come up together.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to bench strength. That U7 group is going to be a very strong group. So when they become competitive in 4 years,
Yeah.
they have a good nucleus of players that all kind of came up together, if you will,
Right.
different teams potentially.
Playing against each other,
Exactly.
and then all
And
of a
looking
sudden,
forward to it.
boom!
Yeah.
Now they're playing with each
Right.
other, and that's
Right.
what I told, because he's got a friend Blake on the other, who was their superstar on that other team. That's what I told Beckham, and they actually go to school together
Yeah.
too, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the game, he's like, "Oh, we're playing Blake's team," and he knows that Blake's really,
Right.
really good,
Right.
but I told him, I said, "Look, you guys are going to be playing against each other for the next 2-3 years or whatever it is." And I said, but if you stick this out, then you guys are going to be on the same team.
Right,
And you guys
right.
are going to be kicking butt together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that, and again, it's just so fun to see.
It is, man.
And when parents let the kids just play, and coaches give them tools to be successful, it just is. It's a positive thing,
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the sport. I mean, I love all sports, but I really love soccer for
Yeah.
a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
And, I love watching women's soccer
Yeah.
more than to be honest, men's soccer. I mean, our women's
Sure.
team is
Yeah.
phenomenal to see
Yeah,
how
they're
they
really
play.
good.
But I just like watching when it is called the beautiful game for a reason.
Right.
And when it's done right,
Yeah.
even at 7 years old,
Yeah.
it is just a thing to you'll just never forget that memory. So that's
Yeah.
what it's about.
So great, man.
Yep.
We'll close with that, man. Thank you so much, Larry.
Thank you again,
Appreciate it.
Troy, for
Yeah.
having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll get
I
this
love
out to
talking
the
soccer.
community. Yeah, right. We can do it. Looking forward to whatever we do for that England game.
There
All
you
right?
go.
And looking forward to maybe getting this podcast out to the community and to the Fire,
sounds great.
The Fire family.
We will do that.
So,
Yep.
All right,
All
cool.
right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yep.